Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Now, this looks like an insurrection or a revolution, not what they say occurred on January 6th. It could look like a taking over of certain states through the back door. So what happened? That's a little spat, let's put it this way, between Texas and the federal government. And Supreme Court ruled against the states and said, the federal government can remove those barbed wires that they placed at the border. The governor of Texas, Abbott, says, that's not going to deter us. We're going to put some more. Well, two big developments are occurring at this moment that could trigger possibly a revolution and an armed insurrection. What was in January 6th was not an insurrection. Now, let me show you one article that we're going to discuss here. And I just uploaded a video based on another article that I covered about 20 minutes ago. So let's go to the article here. This is from The Hill. This is from the 25th of January 2024. Trump calls for states to deploy National Guard to Texas amid border... fake motherfucker over there, I don't want to see her. This barely conscious idiot. Deploys National Guard to Texas amid border feud. So he says, why don't you deploy your National Guard over there? Now that is an insurrection. That could be an insurrection, turned into an insurrection, and obviously into a revolution. Former President Trump encouraged, and I'm quoting, all winning states, could be about 25 so far, because there are 25 states that said that they support Texas. They made a little declaration to deploy National Guard members to Texas amid the feud between Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Republican, and the federal government over the removal of razor wire across the U.S.-Mexico border. No, it's not about, that's why they try to make it a government, idiot governor, and the federal government. No, they want to make it like this, one idiot person versus the legitimate federal government. It's not like that. The federal government is not doing its job, has not been doing its job for a few years now, which is secure the border of our country. That is, our private property must be defended. That's their job. So they're not doing that. The governor of that state said, okay, I will do it myself if you don't do it. And these guys went running to the Supreme Court and say, hey, you got to stop that guy. We got to leave it open. Those guys said 5-4. Yes, you're right. Hey, you got to remove those barbed wire. And what? So the federal government works against us? Well, which is doesn't defend our private property. Remember, the federal government is not the federal government. These are just the guys working for people who benefit out of cheap labor force. If they got to this point, where do you think can be heading to? All right, so let me put it in a context a little bit. And I'm quoting, in the face of this national security, public safety, and public health catastrophe, Texas has rightly invoked the invasion clause of the Constitution and must be given full support to repel the invasion. Quote unquote. Trump said in a statement Thursday. Educated states. Yeah, okay. You mean the people with diplomas? Because that's what they call educated. Why don't you talk to an educated person with a diploma and ask them a few questions? I'm not going to go into it now. And I'm quoting, we encourage all willing states to deploy their guards to Texas to prevent the entry of illegals. And people who enter a private property unauthorized is breaking the law, and that is a crime. And you are illegally located on a private property. You're not illegally being in a private property, which is United States of America. Clear? Clear. And to remove them back across the border, Trump continued, and I'm quoting again, all Americans should support the common sense measures by Texas authorities to protect the safety, security, and sovereignty of Texas and of all the American people. Correct. Protect the American people. But the other guy said, no, 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 let's protect some other interests. On Tuesday, the Texas National Guard appeared to ignore a Supreme Court decision approving the removal of razor wire barriers and continued construction along the border. Abbott justified his decision, criticizing President Biden for not enforcing and violating immigration law. And you might add, how come the Supreme Court voted against Abbott then and voted for these guys? Because there's the same guys behind those guys. And Abbott probably has different kind of guys. We'll see. Remember, people get bought sometimes. The Texas governor has cited the constitutional authority. A state has to defend itself against invasion as the surge of migrants arriving at the country's southern border continues. Trump's declaration comes as Republican governors in several states, 25, but they don't mention it because it's too much, right? Have backed Abbott in his standoff against the government's decision to allow Border Patrol to remove the wire. GOP governors Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma, Kristi Noem of South Dakota, they name them like we're going to be against them. No, we're pro them, at least I am. Okay? Ron DeSantis of Florida, Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, and Brian Kemp of Georgia have all said they support Abbott, 25. And I'm quoting, when I am president on day one, instead of fighting Texas, I will work hand in hand with Governor Abbott and other border states to stop the invasion, seal the border, and rapidly begin the largest domestic deportation operation in history. Well, you send how many hundreds of billions of dollars to Kiev? I think you can do it, if it's about the money. Trump said those Biden has let in should not get comfortable because they will be going home. Who doesn't want to go to green grass of home? Right, Tom Jones? Trump criticized Biden for, and I'm quoting, aiding and abetting the migrant surge. He said it has tied Abbott's hands so, and I'm quoting, so that the invasion continues unchecked. Claims that Texas officials can supersede federal authorities sparked calls for Democrats for Biden to nationalize the Texas National Guard and force them to follow the court's decision. I start with the beginning. Hey, Democrats, the border should be closed. Nobody should enter our property, correct? As nobody can enter your personal property at your homes or the White House. They cannot enter the premises of the White House, just jump over the fence and go over there, knock on the door and get themselves in. Can they? No. So let's start with this one. Then we talk about details. So first, seal it as it's supposed to be. So if you have a country. If you don't have a country has borders. The borders cannot be crossed by whomever illegally, which is breaking the law, entering a private property without authorization. Jesus Christ. I have to go to the ABC 1, 2, 3 with these retards. Yes. So let me show you the video I made a minute ago where things are getting even more escalated than they are with if these guys send National Guard troops to Texas, and not only. Here it is. I just uploaded a minute ago. So it's titled it's a question mark. Armed revolution starts in the US, and I purposely use that kind of a not did or does armed revolution start, and I use armed revolution starts in the US. Incorrect, but it makes much more sense like this. And then quote unquote armed convoy to head to Texas border to stop migration. And in the bottom, quote unquote armed convoy, US citizens led by a retired US Army Lieutenant Colonel drive to Texas. So that is, go and check that out. I just uploaded a minute ago. And I used not only one article, there's more than one, but obviously I used one that looked more concise and without euphemisms and name calling. So what do you think will happen? If these guys send their National Guard over there, if that convoy shows up at the border, it can turn in many directions. If that is controlled by bad dudes, can turn into something else. It is controlled by good dudes, it can turn into something else. Or if it's not controlled by anybody, but the patriotic sense of helping and saving this country could turn into something else. Well, it remains to be seen. How is the US government the federal government going to answer? Full force. I guarantee you that. Full force. They will allow themselves by saying, hey, this is against the law, we are the law. And they will probably have Americans versus Americans, armed versus armed. They're not going to be CIA and FBI, as I said in that video over there. That's going to be too obvious who's who and what's what. Nah. They're going to do something else. And everything is going to have, as I said over there, wear a cloak of legality. And there are the bad dudes, and we are the good dudes, the federal government. And the mass media, which is also controlled by the same guys who control the politicians in Washington, they will cover, and they will call those guys bad dudes. Like, hey, in Canada, remember CBC? No, okay. Remember with that convoy or freedom convoy with the truckers? The same thing. And these guys can always invoke martial law or how do you call those there? Some presidential powers. There's about, if I remember correctly, about 30, 35, I think, that the president can invoke. Are they 35 or 15? Nah, just look for them. Basically, he can do almost what the fuck ever he wants. And if it's an emergency, and he can say, well, it's armed civilians over there, even though they're authorized, nothing illegal about that. Oh, and then is the National Guard, nothing illegal about that. Then what are you going to do? Well, just wait for the narrative put together by the mass media. They're not idiots, because the people behind them are not idiots. They belong to a certain group. A good group. Thank you very much for being with me again today. We'll see. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.